Evening to anyone who is either up this early, if you're in Europe, or to any of my insomniac friends in the US. I decided to do the author Instagram Live that I mentioned in my last author newsletter. Hi everyone. Just now, spontaneously, not posting a time, just so that I can enjoy a few more days of freedom and no schedule, as I am doing a major reset for myself in southern Crete. So perhaps you're viewing this, if anyone, as a recording. And yeah, I wanted to do a read from Event Horizon Stories of No Turning Back, but I titled this read Walking Around. And every time I come to Greece and I think about my writing, I'm always brought to, bear with me, in order to do an Instagram Live, I have to do this on my phone and hold a book at my lap and get papers behind me that I hope don't blow away in the wind. So every time I'm in Greece and I reflect on my writing, I always go back to the author Menis Koumandareas and a short story collection that he wrote, Their Smell Makes Me Want to Cry, translated by Patricia Felisa Barbito, I think is the last name. Forgive me, translator. And there's some remarkable writing in these stories. A very well-known author in Greece. You know, some of the stories I little issue with, but an absolutely beautiful writer. And Their Smell Makes Me Want to Cry. He got that title from a Pablo Neruda poem. And I'm going to read you an excerpt, actually, from two of their works. And it's just so perfect for how I feel, whether I'm in Greece or whether I'm in my island of Manhattan, walking around. Something I love to do, something I do very Zorba-like, and just exist and forget and don't have a plan or a purpose. And it's kind of where I feel like what I'm doing and where I am right now. So why, as a writer, Menis Koumandareas, right? So let me read you an excerpt from one of the last stories in there. What's the story with your book? I tried to cheer him up. When are they going to publish it? He told me that the publisher had decided upon publication, but had not set the exact date yet. These people don't even consider that a writer can't wait forever, he said to me as he leafed through a small tome that looked like a prayer book. Those days are long gone. We live in a different world now. That's why I'm following my own schedule, he said as he stooped over the book. What schedule? I asked him. Now that it's still summer, I go each morning to the seashore and I read out loud to the seagulls and the waves. I bend down and daub myself with sand on my hands, on my feet, on my chest, everywhere. Simple-mindedly, I asked him why he did this. He continued, disregarding my question. In the afternoons, I leave Athens and go out to the country. I read to the cows and the sheep, and there too I bend down and rub earth on me, lots of earth, mostly on my face. Not even my eyes are spared, only my nose so I can breathe. I looked at him in astonishment. I figured that this might help me get used to it a little sooner, doctor, he said. Get used to what, my child? I asked in a fatherly tone. What else? The earth, doctor. Now, this is a story where somebody's dealing with a terminal illness, and that is what the author is referring to. The protagonist is referring to in the story. But I think as writers, and certainly where I am or in my journey, we can definitely relate to understanding that we as writers have our own schedules. And there's a certain point where, and standards, and there's a certain point where you take things into your own hand, and you decide if you self-publish. You decide where you submit your works, maybe places you didn't know about before. But taking your publication destiny in your own hands, that always struck me in of this passage. But in particular for me, as a writer that does not write for audience, I love my audience. I write for audience after I write what I want to write. This really resonated. And I say that with the utmost respect and the utmost love of my intimate group that does enjoy my work. I say this more as an act of liberation for anyone that needs this as a creator, you know, and in a philosophical introspection of why do you create? And I always go back to, and that is why I subtitled this reading to the waves and the seagulls, reading to the rocks of Greece. And that's what I do when I come here. It's just a lovely passage. So regarding their title, Their Smell Makes Me Want to Cry. So it's based on Pablo Neruda poem, Walking Around. And I'll read the first part of that poem. Walking around. It so happens I am sick of being a man. And it happens that I walk into tailor shops and movie houses dried up, waterproof, like a swan made of felt, steering my way in a water of wombs and ashes. The smell of barbershops makes me break into hoarse sobs. The only thing I want is to lie still like stones or wool. The only thing I want is to see no more stores, no gardens, no more goods, no spectacles, no elevators. It so happens I am sick of my feet and my nails and my hair and my shadow. It so happens I am sick of being a man. And the poem goes on. So definitely something that resonates, can easily resonate in the time when we see so much human misbehavior in the world. The other point for me, what struck me, particularly in reading the Menis Koumandareas excerpt, is how, for me, it makes me see writing, for me, is an elegy. And yes, death has been a prominent theme in our lives in the past, in my personal life, in the past 4 years, whether literal or metaphorical. But I do feel when I write, I feel my entire act of creation as a writer is just storytelling something that happened already, sort of in a lamentful way. So I wanted to open with those two, and now I'm going to actually read from Event Horizons, Stories of No Turning Back. Let me see if I can get the book up for you. Bear with me. So this is a short story collection that I published under my imprint Janus Point Press. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It has short stories in it, in prose. It has original photography, original canvas work, original illustrations, sequential art, flash fiction, prolific artists that a lot of you know, We have the mighty Bluster One, Cyrus Amir Bokin, Karen S. Darbo. She's the one that did this beautiful cover. We have 3 variant covers. Could only travel with one. Krista Lara, Gabriela Downey, Aaron Guzman, cousin Aaron, who also did the book design. Galen Eilenfeld, Chronico, Rafael Romeo Magat, Seth Christian Martel, Eric Nugan, Anton Oxenix, Armando Ramirez, and the prolific Tracy 168. So with that, check it out at janicepointpress.com. With that, let's see. Shall I read to you? I have to show you. Greek bookstore was giving out, right? Fate giving out free Pablo Neruda's Ode to the Book, I believe, in Greek. So something for me to sit and practice my Greek with when I get home. Very cool. Very nice size. So let's flip back here. I'm going to read from the story called Event Horizon in Event Horizon. It's actually an excerpt from my, I think, 3rd novel that's sitting in my hard drive. But what I do like to do is make short stories out of my novels, like I did for Jean. So I'm just going to read the opening because it's fitting for its scenery. And it's not a story I would pick to choose for a read at a bookstore, but it is a story that is perfect for the landscape I am in right now. Alita sat still on the small bench by the boat sea ladder, hands planted firmly on its smooth plastic. A small puddle of seawater had pooled under her feet. Underneath her fingers was the scallop shell that the currents had gifted her during her swim. She was resurfacing from a dive when she spotted the boat on the horizon and swam her way back to their own boat, carefully to the seat. She waited for the Coast Guard to board. No swift movements, no body language to trigger an experienced or trigger-happy soldier. The rest of the island-hopping vacationers did the same, becoming statues locked to whichever area of the boat they happened to be on when they got their signal that their vessel would be searched. If they could see themselves scattered across various points on the boat, motionless and barely clothed, perhaps they'd laugh at how they now resembled the statues on the small, forgotten museum visited on their last island stop. There was a silence and eeriness in entering the museum, like they'd stepped into, then out of, a dead galaxy of stone. The sun was the only source of light in that museum, and there didn't seem to be much of a theme in its curation. Just statues unearthed locally from various eras of Hellenism and its once ago gods. Alita had spent time in front of a Venus Genetrix derivative, the only one with a sign in English, "Look, but do not touch." But for all she knew, it could have been any Venus, because in the fashion of its sister statues, the head was lopped off, as were the arms and much of the legs, leaving just the vital torso, pubic area, and thighs, the delta triangle of worship. The sign's word served as the only deterrent for human contact with the statue. The display stand lacked a protective glass case. It simply showcased a divine body on a pedestal. A love like this, devotion, idolization, an unwavering eye. This is what Alita wished for, the kind of love she herself offered. "Alita," Jean would try to correct her, "you got it all wrong. You belong to another universe." The full search of their boat was underway. Jean, though, still, like the rest of them, showed no sign of concern. He sat like a Warren, watching over his collection, and rightfully so. He had assembled his closest friends to a Mediterranean excursion in celebration of his newfound interest in sailing after retirement, including Alita. One guardsman had remained on the military vessel, while another 3 climbed up the ladder of the Siderius Nuncius. 2 immediately went below decks in the living quarters. The remaining guard chatted with the captain. Though Jean was proud of his new skills at sea, he was smart enough to still hire local expertise. For the captain, the search operation was routine. Corruption was routine too. And for this reason, Alita watched the 2 of them talk. She didn't think they had refugees on board, but then again, who is to say the captain didn't have his own arrangements with this craft? Secondary income to offset the revenue-light winter months on the islands. Maybe a body or 2 in the storage room to buy his kid a winter coat. Another human body there in the kitchen for a device upgrade. Alita was more intrigued than worried, but very much annoyed about the offline status of her device, wondering what the price was of the software that overrode its security wall. Governments have such budgets. She saw this firsthand every time she analyzed population data sets for them at work, though what they paid for data on human sexual behaviors was minuscule compared to what they paid for war. Alita's eyes were fixed on the soldier on deck as she listened to the muffled sounds of the 2 below, zigzagging between rooms and items being shuffled around. They spoke softly, making it hard to hear what they were saying. So she switched to reading his lips. His words were mostly banter, what other boats had passed by the island this season, the scorching heat of August. When he mentioned something about tourists, she noticed his lips curl into a smile. She looked at the rest of his face, drawn to his eyes. There, in the center of his black pupils, Alita saw herself reflected. Alita was still wet from the sea. Her hair shone like a black sun, her arms and legs glistening deep copper rays. While she was observing words from his mouth, he was looking at all of her. Alita changed her focus. Of him, she saw a clean-shaven face, a respectful jawline. Young like her, but not adolescent, leaving a good chance that she wouldn't be used as a vessel in which to discharge raw excitement, but instead would be explored and attended to with patience. The crisp white uniform, and particularly the visor, is what made her see him as desirable. This part she knew. She could have a small window of time with him, just for pleasure if she wanted it. But Alita did not want just lust. Alita stirred in her seat and looked elsewhere, but not without smiling first. Clean, one of the guardsmen announced, ascending the stairs. He too gave her a glance. Free to dock. Alita got up from her seat, while Jean and the captain helped untie the gold rope between the ships. "Welcome to Ilios's island," Alita heard a voice tell her in accented English, and when she looked up she saw it was the guardsman. "Once home to one of the 7 wonders of the world, of course." "Thank you," Alita offered, and headed towards the stairs to trade her fins for legs so she could explore the last island before their return home. "Enjoy the sun," the guardsman added. "Not too close to burn yourself, eh?" He laughed, then climbed back down the boat's ladder. Jean let a loop of rope drop into its coiled nest. "Perhaps I was wrong, darling," he remarked to Alita as the Coast Guard pulled away. "Even covered in a towel, you know how to bait them." Alita turned her head to look at Jean as she made her way towards the stairs to the ship's quarters. "You were watching." Jean smiled. "Always, and if not that, listening. I keep asking you, Alita, and I will do so from the grave. Why go fishing with a hook when clearly you've got a net?" Alita stopped mid-step and let out a tired laugh. "Is it wrong to love, Jean?" "That's not the question," Jean replied. "What is fact is that none of them deserve commitment." He, too, spoke his words with wear. That kind of love is reserved for the gods. And look what it got him. You're cheating yourself. Alida walked down the stairs. The boat sailed on to anchor in port along the coast of Rhodes. The midway sun was a brilliant orb of white light, raining diamonds over the surface of the Aegean's waters. So much of the island still lived under the story of Ilios, but not even a nostalgic hint of shadow was cast from the open bronze legs of Colossus, who, once upon a time, would have been above their heads as they entered its harbor. Thank you, rocks and seagulls and waves, and to anyone listening. So that was the beginning of the story Event Horizon in the short story collection, if you want to call it an anthology, short story collection. Event Horizon Stories of No Turning Back, published by Janus Point Press. That had an awesome Kickstarter last year and was just published. The gene of this story, which is based on my novel, which novel was it? To Love Like Venus, is not related to the gene of my short story Gene, but I do use a lot of the same names for layered reasons in some of my stories. That story is definitely, it's how the collection ends, and particularly for women, it very much examines what we want out of love and what we're given instead. And very much in theme with our boundaries and whether they're respected or whether we should even have them. So do check out the collection. It's a wonderful book if you're into sci-fi, black holes. It has great introductions by astrophysics professors and comics and literature professors. Very unique, very much for people that like exploring stories that are steamy and that ask us what happens when we cross the line and there's no turning back. Thank you for joining me as I bask in what is the beauty of southern Crete, what is the beauty of Greece. I got a few days of sunshine. It's actually been mostly cloudy and raining. It is spring. I'll save some of my reflections on the seasons for my author newsletter. But thank you so much for listening and being with me and allowing me to be spontaneous and just have the author live read when it worked for me, so that I continue to go on and live a little bit like Zorba. All right, everyone. Take care.